Chris Lowe, I hope you're having a great spring. Welcome into the game here in T-Town.
Yeah, I'm having a great spring. It's always good to be with you, Ryan. I hope you guys are well.
Absolutely. Probably.
I guess it's not too hot yet, right?
No. It's not too bad. Actually, we were in the 30s last night, and so we've had these mild nights, but it's been kind of warm in the afternoon, and so it's kind of football weather. I mean, I know the rest of the world's talking basketball, Chris, but I mean we're talking football in T-Town. We're still.
That's hard to believe, Ryan.
Well, I mean it's. There's an NIT game tonight in Tuscaloosa, but there's...
It's hard to believe that you're talking football in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
I mean, what would be hard to believe if you weren't talking football 24/7, 365 days out of the year, that would be hard to believe.
Well, it would be. It would be. You know, I was talking a couple of days ago with a former coach, assistant coach under Nick Saban. He said, you know, one of the great things about coaching in Tuscaloosa is literally the passion of the fans. He said it's nonstop. He said, I could stop and get gas and do anything. He said, everybody wants to know, hey, what are we going to look like? What are we going to look like? I mean, you know, we've been counting it down to 240 and we're down to 164. I mean, we feel like we've, we somewhat getting closer that, you can smell it. But, Chris, I want to go to this free agency talk. You've always got a great perspective on college football. And yesterday when Tate Martell and the story broke that he was going to, get his hardship waiver there from the NCAA, what was your reaction, and do you buy into that free agency talk in college football?
I think there is something to it, and I think every case is supposed to be weighed on its own individual merit. But I think what we clearly have seen, Ryan, is that there's a big lean now toward the athlete. That if they want to transfer, that much more so than ever used to be, then they're probably going to be eligible the next year. Now, I think a big part of that, I think the caveat there is how much does the school that they're leaving oppose it? For instance, it sounds like in Martell's case, that Ohio State was not, really standing on a table and saying no. I think that he had their blessing essentially. So I think that's going to be a big part of these cases going forward. And you hear hardship. Used to hardship was you have a family member that's sick that you need to get closer to. If you have an extenuating circumstance in your family or something, personally, that it would help your family, help you if you get closer to another part of the country. I think now it's more, the scope's a lot wider than that. Mitigating circumstances, I think, is the phrase that we're seeing. That can mean a lot of different things. I do think we're going to see a lot more guys, when they do transfer, get immediate eligibility than not. And I think that's something that coaches, fans, and everybody's just going to have to agree that that's the way it's going to be, whether they like it or not. And I think there's two ways to look at it. From the athlete, from the student's standpoint, it gives them more empowerment. And it's something, they go somewhere and coaches leave, or they change systems, or they bring in another highly rated prospect that, is your quarterback, or, you're never going to play, or left tackle, at least gives you a chance to go finish your career somewhere else. It makes it harder for coaches sometimes to recruit. If hey, I feel pretty good at this position, all of a sudden two guys leave, it makes it more difficult. But I think that's the move we're seeing now in college sports, certainly in college football, that the NCAA is going to side with the athlete going forward.
Do you feel like it's good for the overall health of the game?
It depends on how it's applied. And I'm one that absolutely doesn't want to just see, okay, well, this, I don't think I'm better than this running back or that running back, so I'm going to transfer, and I know I'm going to be able to go wherever I want to and play immediately next year, because there really is for kids. You're going to have schools that are going to be packing at these kids all over the country. People are going to say, well, Alabama's stoked with all this talent, Clemson's stoked with all this talent, Ohio State is. You know what? If that's the way it's going to be, you don't think Alabama and Clemson are going to be in a position, if all of a sudden they lose a player early to a pros, or if they get kicked out of school, that they're going to be in a position if they need a left tackle or they need a pass rusher, or one receiver that they're going to be, if it does become truly free agency, to attract those guys to their campuses? Absolutely they are. So I think there's different ways to look at it. I don't think utter and total free agency is going to be good for college football. I don't know that we're going to get there, Ryan. I think, again, a lot of it's going to depend on the kid leaving, what other circumstances is the school opposing leaving and being eligible. If someone's not going to play, if I'm at school X and I'm not going to play, I'm not quarterback or whatever, and I know I'm not going to play, then when you get right down to it, is it the worst thing in the world for him to leave and go somewhere else and be in a position where he can play? See, I don't think it is, but I also don't think just because you get mad at a coach or a coach, you feel like a coach is too hard on you. And I'm not talking about abusing the player, but he's too hard on you, or he's disciplining you. He said, you know what, screw you, I'm going elsewhere. See, that's the part you talk to coaches that, I hope it never gets to that point.
We're talking right now to Chris Low, ESPN college football analyst. Chris Low joining us here. You can connect with him on the Twitter account, COLOW ESPN on the Twitter account. Chris, what's your biggest question around Alabama going into this spring, or maybe we're 3 practices in or will be this afternoon? What's your biggest question mark around this Alabama football team?
Well, I think the new staff, it's a complete makeover. And, as long as Dick's there, we know what to expect out of Alabama, but especially offensively. With Tua and Start, that marriage, I think it'll be good. And, they do lose, some key pieces in the offensive line. They lose what I felt like was the best all-around running back in football. And I think you're going to see that proven out in the draft with Josh Jacobs. But they've got, in my mind, probably the best receiving corps in the country coming back. How does the offense change? Do we see more of a pro-style look under Sharp? Do they go back to that? I don't know that we're ever going to go completely back to that, but certainly he's going to do and start smart enough and savvy enough that they're going to do what they do best. Certainly, Tua's throwing the football down the field to those wideouts is what they do, but they're still going to be able to bloody your nose. So how does he incorporate all of that, and what do they look like offensively? I think that's the thing that I'm most interested to see. They'll be better. Not that they were bad on defense last year, but I think they'll be better. They've got some guys I think they're going to grow up. Yes, they lost to Quentin Williams. Christian Miller, to me, was one of the more underrated players on that team. And I think not having him in that championship game, I don't think that's the difference, because they just got spanked, let's face it. I don't think that's the difference in winning or losing, but it certainly hurt them. But I do think defensively they got some younger players. And you're going to see them defensively and get back to being, and you've heard Nick say it, being back to who they want to be and getting back to the Alabama identity.
Well, and it's been a point of emphasis, and I use your phrase all the time, because you're the first person that said this, and it's been several years ago, and I don't remember exactly what year, but you always say Alabama is at its best when they bloody people's nose. And I've used that verbiage quite a bit, because when I hear Nick Saban talking about the Alabama way, the Alabama factor, I go back and I reference Chris Low reminded us of that. Alabama's at its best when they're great at the point of attack.
Yeah, and on both sides, stopping the run, making teams one-dimensional. I mean, they got carved apart. You saw how they got carved apart in secondary last year. Certainly against Clemson. But being able to stop the run and make teams one-dimensional, and then get after the quarterback on defense. And in an offense, be able to run the football, but stretch the field vertically. Run play, make play action effective. And I think that's when certainly they've got the quarterback, and Tua to do that. But Tua also can move around and buy time, extend the play, he can run. He's not hurt running the football, but he certainly can. But boy, he can throw the football and sees the whole field. So I think that's both of those things. To protect, they've always had those guys that tackle. And losing Jonas, certainly that's going to be a big piece to fill there on the offensive line. But you're right, and you look at their best team when they've had their most success, they've been able to do that. They've been able to win those battles at the point of attack. They've been able to protect on offense, stop the run on defense, and make teams one-dimensional.
I'll take you to ESPN.com, an article that you contributed to, college football spring practice, players we're most excited to watch, and you list Toro Lewis And you do have to ask the question, what if he stays healthy? What is the potential of a guy like Toro Lewis?
Well, I can tell you what Nick told me last year, that when they lost him like the first season, he said that he was their best pass rusher and maybe one of the best players. I feel like if he stayed healthy, he would have been a first-round draft pick. So he's been eligible right for the draft after this past year. I don't want to speak out of turn.
No, he would have been. Yeah, he would have been.
Yeah, and that's me saying that. That's not Coach Saban, but now Nick did tell me that he felt like he was their best pass rusher and one of their best players. I feel like what I'm saying, had he stayed healthy, I think he would have been a first-round pick. So, I mean, yeah, those guys rushing the passer off the edge. I mean, quarterback, pass rushers, and lockdown corners are at such a premium, not only at the college level but the NFL level. But losing a guy like that was a huge loss for them. And Alabama has had some injuries over the last few years, and even Alabama that recruits as well as they do and develop and seemingly stockpiles depth. When you lose a player of that caliber, it takes its toll. And I think it certainly did that last year. So if he's healthy, and I think he is, and stays healthy this year, getting a player of this caliber back immediately makes them better on defense.
Well, and you talked about it, even a place like Alabama. When Nick Saban came out and Ali Cahoe, which is, that he's been spotted on campus, don't know exactly his involvement. But when you hear Nick Saban say that you don't know if he's going to be able to play football or not, or if he's going to be able to return, I mean, that was the quotes that he made a couple of weeks ago, the Friday prior to spring break. And you begin to kind of hit the panic button a little bit in Tuscaloosa because there's not a lot of depth at that middle linebacker when we talk about it. I mean, potentially, those typical linebackers, signal callers that you see in the Nick Saban era.
Yeah, and they've really been hit hard at linebacker.
Yes, they have.
When you look at injuries, and in some cases, guys leaving early, but there's been a rash of that the last couple of years, and of course they got some of those guys back 2 years ago, and that made a big difference. But no, and that's why coaches to tell you, you never have enough depth at any position, but certainly in the front seven, when you lose guys that can get to make plays sideline to sideline, guys that are experienced. It shows up, even at the Clemson, even at the Alabama, even at the Ohio State.
Chris, let me go across the state for just a couple of minutes. What are you expecting from Auburn in 2019?
Well, they didn't get. I know they were hoping to get a transfer quarterback, and they stuck out there. Now that doesn't mean that they won't be in better. I mean, I think the Knicks kid's got a really good chance to win that job. Here's what I think, though. On defense, they'll be outstanding. To get their ground back, their front, and Kevin Steele, I think, is one of the best defensive coordinators in college football. They will be a load on defense. They will be in every game they play again because of their defense. Now, they got to figure out on offense. Clearly, Gus Malzahn, it's his show now as far as calling plays and run the show. With ball, then explode and bowl. I don't put a lot of stock into that. Yay or nay. But I do think you're going to see them. We talked about Alabama's identity. Get back to what Gus wants to do because it's his show. I think maybe in the past it's hard for guys like that who call plays and a head coach to pull all the way back when other guys are calling plays. But now you don't have to because he's going to be doing it. But they got to get it right at quarterback. They certainly got to get better and improve the offensive line. They were young last year. Offensive line. I think they will be better. We'll see. Again, it won't if they don't improve and get better, it won't be because of the defense. But I do think because of the defense, they'll have a chance to be in just better the game they play.
All right, let me move to Texas A&M, and then we'll let you go because a lot of expectations around Jimbo Fisher going into year number 2.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is because you saw that program change last year. The culture, the feel, there was more of a physicality the way they played. I mean, they lost some tough games to some really good teams. If you look at who they lost to, they lost to Clemson and Alabama, only the two teams that played in the national championship game. The way he's recruited, Jimbo has always been a guy that develops quarterbacks. He's got a good eye for quarterback talent. He knows what he wants at that position, and he coaches them up. Right? You will see that pro. Someone asked me recently, who's going to challenge outside of Georgia? Georgia, I think, has proven that they're going to certainly be right there with Alabama under 30. Who else is going to challenge Alabama in the SEC? And right now, the two teams that I would choose would be, and I think LSU. I don't want to forget about LSU. LSU has sort of been there, but other than usual suspects, I would say A&M and Florida. And obviously, Florida's in the East, A&M's in the West, but with A&M's facilities, their resources, the way they're recruiting, and Jimbo's track record of being able to he's a national championship coach. That's the program over there in the West that I think's got everything it takes to beat somebody that can give the title run for its money.
And I've said it for years. I thought it was it's a gold mine with the right coach, and maybe they've got that guy in Jimbo Fisher. It's as you said, the money, the resources. They've invested $500 million.
Well, the tradition.
Sure.
You're right, Ryan. They've got there's everything's in place there. The talent pool in that state to win at a high level, and you can tell those kids now, hey, listen, you stay here in Texas, but you get to play in the SEC. I mean, that's a big draw, a big calling card for all these kids. So, and I agree. I think they are the team over there in the West that I think has a chance to really make a move in the next couple of years.
Hey, Chris, as always, thank you so much for your time. We certainly appreciate you spending a couple of minutes with us here in T-Town, talking some football in the spring, and we thank you so much.
Sure thing. You guys have a great day.
Hey, absolutely.